Financial wealth will only be found by those who understand its roots. In this book, you'll discover principles that will unlock your abundance mindset once and for all. Wealth does not begin with money. Money is just the fruit of it. Imagine for a moment that a book exists. But it's no ordinary book, it's a forgotten, hidden, silenced book. A book not found in bookstore windows or featured on self-help websites. A book that carries knowledge so powerful that if applied by everyone, it could completely unbalance the system as we know it. This book doesn't have a glossy cover, it doesn't have million-dollar marketing, and it's never been advertised on television. But it has something no other book dares to deliver, the true ability to transform your relationship with wealth while you sleep. That's right, without physical effort, without complicated strategies, without magic formulas, simply by intentionally using what you already carry within you, your mind. The great secret of this book lies not in its pages, but in how it teaches you to use the most powerful time of your day, your sleep. During the night, when your body rests and your consciousness takes a break, there's a part of you that never sleeps. It's the oldest, most loyal, and most influential part of your mind, your subconscious. And it's precisely this part that this book activates, because it's in the silence of the early morning, when all noise ceases, that the deepest truths take hold. Think about it seriously. Every day, you try to change your life by doing things while you're awake. You chase money, you struggle to solve problems, you fight with the clock and bills. But perhaps what's missing isn't more effort, but rather a quiet change that begins in the most unlikely place, your sleeping mind. Most people struggle so much during the day that they barely realize the power that exists in the dark of night, and that's exactly where the forgotten book comes in. Before continuing with the teachings, make sure you've already hit the like button. But only do this if you truly want to attract wealth into your life, and if you can, write in the comments, "I'm ready to prosper." This reinforces your commitment to this new journey of transformation. What you're about to discover isn't just empty theory, it's a practice based on mental science, ancient wisdom, and observations that have been hidden not by chance, but simply because they work. They work so well that whoever discovered them kept them to themselves. It works because it touches where no one sees, touches what no one controls, and transforms what many don't even believe can be changed. Your inner identity about what wealth is, what you deserve, and what is possible for your life. Let's talk about reprogramming, but not a technical reprogramming full of big words. We're talking about a simple, profound, continuous practice that occurs while you sleep. What happens is that, in the minutes before sleep, your mind undergoes a transition. It stops functioning in the hectic rhythm of the day and enters a state of total receptivity, a state in which defenses fall, internal critics are silenced, and logical filters are turned off. In this short period, and it is truly short, you have direct access to your subconscious, as if opening a secret door to the control center of your reality. And what happens when you enter this state, laden with thoughts of scarcity? The subconscious obediently absorbs everything: fear, worry, doubt, frustration. It registers these emotions as commands, and throughout the night, it works to transform them into real experiences the next day. And guess what? The next day you wake up feeling heavy, tired, with the same feeling that life is hard and money is scarce. The cycle repeats. Night after night, you unknowingly sow the seeds of poverty. But what if instead, you consciously decided to plant something else? What if you used the final minutes before bed to visualize images of abundance, to feel gratitude for the wealth that is coming, to emotionally affirm that you are worthy of prosperity? This isn't fantasy, it's practice, and what the forgotten book teaches is exactly that: how to transform this small moment into a silent wealth factory. Starting today, you'll begin to notice something different. You'll understand that it's not just your actions during the day that shape your financial life. It's mainly the thoughts you entertain while your body rests. Your mind is a garden, and each night is a new opportunity to plant. The problem is that many are planting weeds and complaining about not harvesting flowers. The time has come to change that. The first step is to observe. Honestly observe what you've been thinking about before bed. What are the last thoughts that cross your mind? Do you go to bed thinking about bills, difficulties, and comparisons with others? Or do you go to bed feeling peaceful, grateful, secure, prosperous, and trusting that your mind is working for you? This difference changes everything. The second step is to practice. Practice new affirmations, new images, new feelings. This needs to be done with intention, with emotion, with presence. It's not enough to simply repeat cliched phrases. Your subconscious doesn't respond to empty words. It responds to true emotion, to vivid images, to intense feelings. It's like fertile soil. It will only bear fruit if you plant it with clarity and water it with emotion. And the third phase, perhaps the most powerful, is to let your subconscious do the work. After visualizing, after affirming, after feeling, surrender. Don't worry about how or when the changes will come. Just trust. Trust isn't waiting around and doing nothing. Trust is knowing you did what needed to be done, gave the right command, and now the invisible process will begin. Right now, as you read, your subconscious is already receiving new commands. You're already planting a new seed, and if you decide to continue, night after night, planting with intention, nurturing with emotion, and watering with consistency, then the harvest will come, not as a miracle, but as an inevitable result, because true wealth doesn't begin in the bank account. It begins in the silence of the mind, in the darkness of the bedroom, in the words whispered on the pillow, in the images created with a steady heartbeat. True wealth is programmed in the invisible, and it only becomes visible when you learn to command your mind as a purposeful creator. Prepare yourself. From now on, every night will be different. Every sleep will be sacred. Every nocturnal thought will be a golden opportunity. You are opening a forgotten book, and at the same time you are writing your own. A book of abundance, wealth, fulfillment. And the next chapter depends only on you. What separates a life marked by scarcity from one surrounded by abundance is not a secret kept by the few, nor a special skill only a few are born with. The difference lies in how these people's minds have been trained, especially during the moments when most don't even realize they're shaping their own destiny, the hours before bed. What the forgotten book reveals is not some miraculous new development. It's a truth that has always been there for everyone, but few have had the courage or discipline to see it. Programming the mind during sleep is so powerful that, if it were truly understood, it would cease to be a hidden resource and would be taught from childhood. But it isn't. And do you know why? Because when someone understands the power they have while sleeping, they no longer depend on external methods, outside strategies, or outside validation. They begin to silently create everything they desire to experience. It's a discreet yet invincible power, invisible yet absolute. During sleep, especially in the minutes leading up to the deep state, your mind enters a hypnagogic state. This complicated name simply describes that magical moment between being awake and sleeping, a transitional state where the conscious mind begins to relax and the subconscious, which is like fertile soil, opens completely. In this brief interval, everything you think, feel, and imagine is absorbed without resistance like seeds sown in virgin soil. Most people, however, waste this moment. They go to sleep thinking about debts, work worries, family arguments, scarcity. And without knowing it, they feed the very thing they want to eliminate. The mind, unfiltered, simply obeys. It records, it repeats, and manifests. Therefore, those who constantly repeat the same problems are often, unintentionally, planting the same seeds every night. But the forgotten book offers a different proposal. It shows how, by using this same moment with awareness and intention, it is possible to alter the deepest patterns of the mind, not with force, not with effort, but with repetition, silent repetition done at the right moment with the right energy. You can start today, in fact, you can start tonight. You don't need equipment, apps, or expensive books. You just need awareness, willpower, commitment. Just lie down and before drifting off to sleep, replace negative thoughts with images of abundance. Replace anxiety with gratitude. Swap doubt for certainty. And you might ask, but how can you feel gratitude for something that hasn't happened yet? The answer is simple. You feel it because by doing so, you're teaching your subconscious what your new reality should be like. You're giving the command. You're setting the standard. The mind doesn't differentiate between what's experienced in the external world and what's experienced internally with true emotion. For it, what matters is what you feel. And when you feel wealth, even if it's not yet reflected in your bank statement, your mind begins to move to transform it into a real experience. The process is simple yet profound. Start with an image. Imagine yourself living the life you desire, not with superficial luxury but with tranquility, security, and freedom. See yourself walking into your ideal home. See yourself opening your bank app and seeing a balance that brings you peace. Feel what you would feel if this were real now. And hold this image for a few minutes, breathing deeply, truly feeling it. Then just surrender, let go. Let your mind continue its work throughout the night. Repeating this night after night is what builds a new mental framework. And when your mental framework changes, everything changes. You start making different decisions. You notice opportunities that previously went unnoticed. You attract people, situations, and paths that align with this new internal pattern. And best of all, without conscious effort, simply because you're now operating from a different frequency. It's like changing the radio station. If you've always tuned into scarcity, you'd only hear songs about lack, struggle, and worry. But when you turn the dial and tune into abundance, the music changes. And with it, so does the way you feel, behave, and live. Maybe until now you've never paid attention to your nighttime thoughts. Maybe you didn't know they held such power, but now you do. And with this knowledge comes a responsibility. The responsibility to take control, to no longer let chance decide what your mind will program each night, to consciously choose what to plant. That's why the Forgotten Book insists so much on 3 pillars: clarity, emotion, and repetition. Clarity because your mind needs specific instructions. It's not enough to say, "I want to be rich." That's vague. Your mind needs scenes, clear images, details. Emotion because it's emotion that imbues programming with depth. Without emotion, words are shallow and don't penetrate. And repetition because no seed grows overnight. You have to plant, water, and wait. At first, you may not feel any difference. Your body may fall asleep and your mind may still be confused. But keep going, because little by little, the transformation begins to happen, and it comes silently, discreetly, profoundly. First, it changes the way you wake up. Then it changes your mood for the day. Then you start thinking differently, acting differently, and without realizing it, the world around you begins to respond differently too. This is how wealth begins. Not with an extraordinary event, but with small internal changes that together build a new reality. The Forgotten Book doesn't promise miracles. It offers something better, a method that depends solely on you and that works every night while you sleep. Now that you've begun this journey, write in the comments, "I choose to plant abundance every night." Make this a commitment. And when you go to bed tonight, close your eyes with intention. Imagine, feel, affirm, and sleep, knowing that while your body rests, your mind is creating, working, connecting. You are no longer at the mercy of chance. You are in control. The book has been opened, and the next page of your life will be written by what you decide to plant tonight. There's a moment of the day that few value, but which holds one of the greatest transformative powers the human mind can access, the last few minutes before falling asleep. This seemingly ordinary, silent interval is the direct entry point to the place where all your beliefs reside, your subconscious. And whatever is introduced there, even in the form of a simple image or thought, has the potential to transform into concrete experiences in the days to come. You don't need to change your entire life overnight, but you need to start by changing how you end your day, because it's precisely this ending that commands the restart. It's in this closing that the orders your mind will silently follow while you sleep are planted. Now think honestly, how have you been ending your days? What have you been saying to yourself? With what feelings do you lay your head on the pillow? Where does your mind go in those last moments before disconnecting from the world? This is where the secret lies. It's not just your thoughts during the day that matter, it's mainly the ones you let into your sleep. And why is this so important? Because in this transitional state, where the body begins to relax and the conscious mind withdraws, logical barriers dissolve. You're no longer analyzing, judging, or comparing. You simply feel, and what you feel in that moment is absorbed without resistance. Your subconscious registers this information as truth, without discussion, without filtering, without evaluating whether it makes sense. And once recorded, this content becomes part of the foundation from which you begin to create your external reality. So, if you go to bed every night harboring the fear of what might happen tomorrow, mentally replaying everything you're missing, criticizing yourself for the decisions you've made, or lamenting what you haven't yet achieved, you are, without knowing it, programming your mind to repeat this pattern. But if instead you consciously decide to replace these images with others, with different sensations, with affirmations that reflect the reality you want to live, then you reverse the process. You begin to use this nocturnal window as a tool for creation, and not just for reproducing old patterns. You may not have control over everything that happened during your day, but you do have absolute control over the last few minutes before bed. And that's where the real magic begins. Because we're not talking about illusionary magic, but rather a mental strength that can be trained with practice. What this forgotten book teaches isn't something esoteric. It's something completely rational, based on how the brain works and how the subconscious reacts to emotional repetition. And this is where discipline comes in. Discipline isn't rigidity, it's commitment to what you want to transform. If you truly want to change your relationship with money, prosperity, and your worth, you need to commit to this small daily ritual. Lie down, take a deep breath, disconnect from the external, and connect internally with the image of what you want to experience. Feel it. Simple affirmations like "My mind attracts prosperity," "I am worthy of wealth," "Abundance surrounds me," when said with intention, can reshape internal structures that have been stuck for years. But be careful. It's not just repeating for the sake of repeating. Repetition without emotion lacks depth. The subconscious mind doesn't respond to empty words. It responds to words with energy, to commands charged with intention, to statements that come from within with truth. That's why this process doesn't take much time. It doesn't take hours, but it truly does. A few minutes a night, with focus and emotion, are worth more than hours of reading or courses you forget the next day. Because here, what's being transformed isn't just what you know, but what you feel to be true about yourself and what you deserve. And you might notice that this process also begins to change how you feel during the day. You wake up feeling lighter, you face challenges with more clarity, ideas come more easily, and the right encounters start to appear without you having to chase them. All because your mind is now programmed to seek, recognize, and attract what aligns with the new image you're projecting every night. You begin to realize that the problem wasn't the outside world at all. The problem was the silent programming operating within you, and it was on automatic mode. By regaining control of this programming, you stop being a victim of your thoughts and become the author of your own trajectory. The forgotten book is clear on this. All great changes begin in the invisible. They begin with a new kind of self-talk, with a new kind of visualization, with a new feeling before bed. It's as if each night is a golden opportunity to mentally rehearse the life you want to live. And the more you rehearse, the more natural it becomes, and the more natural, the closer to reality. You don't need to convince anyone, nor prove anything to others. The only one who needs to believe is yourself. And that starts within, silently, at bedtime. This is the moment most overlooked by those seeking transformation and the most valued by those who truly change their lives. If you want to intensify this process, start creating your own nighttime ritual. It can be something simple: dimmed lights, conscious breathing, affirmations spoken quietly, or even written in a notebook next to your bed. Clear visualizations of scenes that represent abundance. Feel it. Be grateful as if it were already real, and then surrender. Trust, let go. Let your mind do the rest. Repeat this every night, and when the first signs of change begin to appear, and they will, keep going. Don't stop, because now you're no longer seeking miracles. You're following a process, a silent, powerful, and utterly transformative process. Write in the comments, "Every night, I plant the life I want to reap." This is your new practice. This is your new choice. This is your new path. And this path begins where no one is looking, inside your mind, in the silence of the night. Many people believe that wealth is merely a consequence of effort, luck, or circumstance. But what almost no one realizes is that wealth is, above all, a matter of mental frequency, an internal state that, when properly cultivated, begins to transform the entire external world. And it is during sleep, precisely when distractions disappear, that this frequency can be adjusted most precisely. During the day, your mind is bombarded with noise, opinions, stimuli, and tensions that hinder access to your true creative power. But at night, when everything falls silent, your mind becomes fertile soil, ready to absorb the most profound instructions. And these instructions can build castles or ruins, depending on what you deliver to it before closing your eyes. If you end your day telling yourself that nothing is going right, that things are difficult, that there's never enough money, then you're feeding your mind with codes that it will faithfully obey. Your mind doesn't argue, it executes. On the other hand, if you end the day affirming that you are at peace with your path, that you are prepared to prosper, and that wealth is already moving toward you, then you are sowing the seeds of codes that activate new possibilities. The most impressive thing is that you don't even need to understand how everything will happen. That's not the role of the conscious mind. The how belongs to the invisible part of the process. What you need is to establish the what clearly and nourish that what with true and constant emotion. At this point, the physical environment also becomes an ally or a saboteur. You may have the right words in mind, but if you sleep in a disorganized place with broken objects, a pile of useless things, or a room that exudes chaos, then you're sending silent messages of scarcity to your subconscious. Your physical environment speaks, and what it says is being heard by the most influential part of your mind. Therefore, the Forgotten Book teaches that wealth isn't just about what you think, but also about what you see, what you feel, and what you allow to live in the small space where you rest every night. Your room, your bed, your nighttime routine, all of these influence what your mind will program. If you truly want to begin transforming your relationship with money, start there. Create an environment that inspires abundance, even if it's simple. A clean, well-kept, and quiet space. A space where your mind can rest safely and absorb the message you want to embody. Imagine someone trying to plant flowers in a field full of rubble. No matter how much they water or how many seeds they sow, if the soil is dirty, nothing will grow. Likewise, your mind needs space. It needs emotional cleansing, order around it, to more powerfully absorb the commands you want to give. And when everything is aligned, your thoughts, your emotions, your environment, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your mind stops resisting, it starts cooperating, and most importantly, it starts creating. This is where you move from the wanting phase to the being phase. You stop wanting wealth and start seeing yourself as prosperous. This transition is subtle but powerful, because when you change who you are on the inside, life changes on the outside, almost like magic, but without any magic. This new internal attitude begins to affect your behaviors. You begin to make choices more aligned with your desired life. You stop accepting the bare minimum. You stop repeating old patterns. You begin to say no to what doesn't represent your new frequency. And most importantly, you begin to say yes to what previously seemed distant, improbable, or unattainable. The secret the Forgotten Book reveals isn't in effort, it's in frequency. And that frequency is defined by the details of what you think, feel, and say in the minutes before falling asleep. This needs to be deeply understood. What you think before sleep is the password to your next reality. Don't ignore it. And if during the day you notice your mind slipping into thoughts of scarcity, that's okay. That's natural. But at night, take back control. Reaffirm your choices. Visualize intensely. Affirm with conviction. Go to bed feeling like you're building a new chapter, because that's exactly what you'll be doing. You don't need to see results immediately. You don't need to force anything. Just keep going. Every night, one step at a time, one clear image at a time, one emotional affirmation at a time. The process is silent, yet profound. It's subtle, yet powerful. And the more you repeat it, the more your mind begins to record, accept, and transform. Write in the comments, "My environment and my mind now reflect abundance." Declare this with intention. Let it be more than a sentence. Let it be a commitment to what you're building. Because you are building, yes, even if no one sees it, even if you don't yet have visible results, even if everything looks the same. The difference between those who transform their lives and those who only dream about it lies in this kind of practice. Repeated, committed, silent, and consistent. The vast majority stop halfway. You won't stop, you will keep going, you will persist, you will maintain the discipline, because now you know the value of every thought before sleep. You've understood the power of every sensation as you lie down. You are writing your own chapter in this forgotten book, and each night is a new page. There's a silent truth that few can see. You don't attract what you desire most strongly. You attract what you consider normal, what you believe is natural for you. And that's why so many struggle so much and can't move forward, because they keep wanting things that deep down they still consider distant, improbable, or too big. But there is a way that doesn't depend on your current situation or your external conditions. A way that begins with a simple and powerful decision to make wealth a familiar thought. And that's precisely the role of nighttime reprogramming. To make images of abundance, thoughts of prosperity, and feelings of worthiness no longer seem strange but become commonplace in your mind. When something becomes common to your subconscious, it stops resisting. And when it stops resisting, it starts creating. This is the key. What you repeat with emotion, your brain begins to accept as truth. It doesn't matter if it's not yet visible. If it's felt intensely and repeated consistently, the mind begins to act as if it were real, and over time, the external world adjusts. This happens because the human brain doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's experienced with emotional intensity. This is one of the greatest revelations of the forgotten book. Your mind doesn't work with logic, it works with repeated emotional experiences. In other words, it's not the fact that creates belief, but the emotional repetition of the thought. When you imagine something and feel it as if it were already real, your brain records it as a memory, and memories shape behaviors. Behaviors shape results. Results shape your life, and it all starts with what you feel in the silence of the night. Therefore, practicing visualization before bed isn't a whim. It's a re-engineering of your mind. Every time you close your eyes and imagine in rich detail a situation of abundance, whether it's living in comfort, helping others, realizing your dreams, feeling safe and free, and repeat it with real emotion, you're creating neural connections. You're literally building a new internal identity, and this identity is what determines what you attract. Because you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you go to bed every night with images of failure, feelings of fear, thoughts that nothing will change, then your mind registers this as your truth, and it begins to organize your reality to confirm this pattern. But if, instead, you train your mind with new images, new feelings, new declarations of power and prosperity, then change begins. It's like writing new code. Imagine your subconscious as a powerful computer. It executes whatever it's programmed to do, but it doesn't question. It simply obeys. If the code says I'm not capable, it seeks ways to prove it. If the code says I always lack, it organizes experiences to reinforce that lack. But if you change the code to I am worthy of thriving and repeat it with emotion, it changes its operation. It begins to seek paths, situations, people, and ideas that confirm this new truth. Therefore, each repetition before bed is like a new line being written in this code, and each new line is a new lifeline being drawn. The secret is consistency. Many people try for 2 or 3 days and give up because they didn't feel anything. But reprogramming doesn't work in a rush. It works with repetition. You don't expect a seed to become a tree in a week, but you know that if you water it every day, it will eventually sprout. It's exactly the same with your mind. The mind only trusts what you consistently show it. If you change your speech every night, it gets confused. But if you repeat the same images of abundance, the same feelings of freedom, the same words of power, it begins to understand, this is what he wants, this is what she desires, so let's make it real. You might think this is too simple, but that's precisely where its power lies. Because the mind loves the simple, it loves the repetitive, it loves the emotional. And when you understand this, you stop looking for complicated formulas and start practicing the basics intensely. So, choose an image. A single scene that represents what you most desire to experience. See yourself fulfilling a dream, opening a letter with good news, receiving a valuable gift, helping someone generously, living in peace and freedom. It doesn't matter what the scene is. What matters is that it represents for you the symbol of the life you desire. So every night before you go to sleep, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and relive this scene as if it were already real. Feel as if it were already happening. Be grateful for it, and fall asleep with this clear, emotionally charged image within you. Over time, this scene will stop being something you want. It will become something you are. And when that happens, the surrounding reality begins to adapt. Write in the comments, my mind believes in abundance because I teach it every night. That's your mission now. Teach your mind to accept abundance as something normal, natural, possible, deserved. Because in the end, what the forgotten book teaches us is exactly this. Wealth begins when your mind stops resisting it, and that resistance is only dissolved when you replace it every night with a new image, a new feeling, a new story, and this story begins today, with you, and with whatever you decide to visualize before bed. There's something as silent as it is powerful that defines, without you even realizing it, how much wealth you allow into your life, the value you believe you have. Not the value others say you have, not the value reflected in your resume or your experiences, but the value that, deep down, you truly feel you have. This internal perception is like a thermostat, and it regulates exactly how much abundance you allow yourself to receive. The most surprising thing about this is that this thermostat doesn't adjust during the day when you're agitated, distracted, or trying to solve 1,000 things. It adjusts primarily during the hours when you're most vulnerable, most surrendered, most open, and this happens in the silence of the night, when you close your eyes, switch off your body, and enter that subtle space between thought and deep sleep. It's there that your mind reprograms how much you allow yourself to receive. Many people make affirmations throughout the day. They say phrases like, "I deserve to be prosperous," or "Money comes easily to me." But when they lie down at night, the truth emerges. Because in that moment the mind doesn't lie. And if even after all the day's affirmations you fall asleep with feelings of insecurity, comparison, self-criticism, or fear, then that's what's being imprinted on your subconscious. That's why deep down, true transformation doesn't happen in the words you say to others. It happens in the words you whisper to yourself when no one is watching. And these words, these thoughts and inner feelings are what build your new identity. The Forgotten Book reveals to us that wealth is not a reward, it's a consequence. And the consequence of what? Of the level of self-worth you silently cultivate within yourself. People who feel small, even unconsciously, act to ward off opportunities. They react with fear, reject what's too good, and doubt when something works out. But people who, even without external proof, begin to see themselves as valuable, begin to act with more courage, more presence, more intuition. And this change begins in the simplest moment of your day, bedtime. It's there, lying down, with your eyes closed and your most intimate thoughts emerging, that you must begin to train your mind to accept your worth. How? With practice, with repetition, with truth. You can start creating a new internal dialogue right now. Before you go to sleep, tell yourself, "I am enough, I am capable, I am worthy of a rich and peaceful life." Say this not as if repeating something you've heard, but as if deciding to believe in something new. Even if your mind resists, even if it feels forced at first, keep going. The subconscious doesn't need proof. It needs repetition. It needs feeling. It needs imagery. So, along with these words, imagine yourself being treated with respect. Imagine people valuing what you have to offer. See yourself entering environments that previously seemed too big. Visualize yourself being rewarded for who you are, not just for what you do. Feel what it would be like to live a life where you look in the mirror and see yourself as valuable, capable, and absolutely deserving of everything you desire. Don't wait for the world to change to start seeing yourself this way. Start seeing yourself this way, and the world will change in response. This is the true turning point. When you stop waiting for external recognition and start giving yourself internal recognition every night. When you decide you'll no longer go to sleep with thoughts of guilt, shame, or comparison, but rather with affirmations of worth, images of dignity, and feelings of worthiness. And if you slip up during the day, that's okay. No one changes years of negative beliefs in 24 hours. But at night, start over, every night, like a patient gardener, replanting, watering, tending, because the harvest will come, and it will be proportional to how much you truly believe you deserve it. Self-worth is the invisible seed of wealth, and the most fertile ground for planting it is the moment before bed. Now write in the comments, "I sleep with the feeling that I am valuable." This isn't just a sentence, it's a command, a declaration to the most powerful part of your mind, a new access password, a new code. You'll notice that over time, this simple practice begins to change how you approach life. It begins to change your body language, your posture, your gaze, your energy, because when you value yourself internally, the world responds externally. This is the secret hidden among the unwritten pages of the Forgotten Book, and now you know it. And more than that, now it's in your hands. The human mind works in cycles. Everything that is repeated day after day enters an automatic pattern. This pattern becomes behavior. Behavior becomes habit, and habit over time shapes destiny. This is why many live in cycles of scarcity that seem impossible to break, not because of a lack of ability, but because repetition is being unconsciously used to maintain the old, not to create the new. The secret revealed by the Forgotten Book is that you can use this very same mechanism, repetition, to establish a new cycle, a cycle of prosperity. And the best time to initiate this cycle is not during the day, when the mind is overloaded. It's at night, always at night, because that's when the conscious mind falls silent and the subconscious mind opens like an unlocked door, awaiting new orders. Every time you repeat an emotional thought before bed, you're strengthening a circuit within your brain. Imagine that each repeated thought is like a path being walked for the first time in a field of tall grass. At first, it's difficult. The passage is narrow, but the more you walk that path, the more it forms. It becomes easier to navigate, more natural, until one day you don't even need to think anymore. You walk it automatically. The same thing happens with your thoughts about money, worth, and abundance. If you repeat ideas of prosperity every night, with emotion and truth, even if you don't yet see anything in the external world, your brain begins to understand this is where we're going. And it begins to build pathways, connections, synapses, and impulses that make you act, feel, and perceive as someone who lives in abundance. And the most surprising thing is that this doesn't require major changes. You don't need to change your house, city, or profession to get started. You just need to change what you think in the 5 minutes before falling asleep. It's in this small, silent interval that great revolutions begin, but most people don't realize this. They go to sleep tired, frustrated, with their cell phone in hand, with confused thoughts, carrying the weight of the day and the fears of tomorrow. And when they do this, they're not just ending a cycle, they're starting a new one, the same old way. The subconscious doesn't judge, it simply picks up where you left off. If you sleep with fear, it keeps working on it. If you sleep with gratitude, it multiplies it. If you sleep with doubts, it reinforces more doubts. If you sleep with images of wealth, it rearranges everything to attract that reality. This is how you establish a new life cycle, with consistency, with repetition, with a firm choice to stop sleeping as a victim and start sleeping as a creator. And this is where the cycle of prosperity begins to form. At first, it's invisible, no outward signs, just a slight sense of well-being, a new feeling upon waking, an idea that suddenly appears, an unexpected coincidence. But if you keep going, these small changes add up, and suddenly you realize you no longer think the way you used to, that certain opportunities begin to arise, that decisions that were once confusing are now simple, and you realize something inside me has changed, and it was this change that began to transform the world outside. The Forgotten Book doesn't promise immediate miracles. It offers a solid truth. What is repeated with faith and emotion transforms what seemed unbreakable. But this faith isn't blind, it's practical. It's cultivated every night, it's reinforced in silence, and it grows when you sleep. So stop saying you'll try. Stop saying you don't know if it will work. Just do it. Every night, for 21 days, then for 30, then for 60, until you don't even need to remember anymore. You'll do it naturally. You'll think abundantly automatically. You'll act with courage effortlessly, because you'll have become a different person. A person with a new financial identity. And it starts now, with a decision, a clear image, a powerful phrase, a true emotion. Choose your phrase. It can be simple. My mind attracts wealth while I sleep. Repeat it with intention. See the scene. Feel as if it's already happening, and sleep with this frequency. Every day without exception. Write in the comments, I'm starting my cycle of silent prosperity. Make this your mantra, because now you know, the old cycle doesn't have to continue. You have the power to start a new one, and it begins every night when you close your eyes and plant what you want to harvest. You've already understood that the secret isn't waking up to fight, but going to sleep to program, that the mind that creates scarcity can also create abundance, and that everything you need is within you, right now. Few sensations in life are as powerful as the feeling of security. When you feel secure, your decisions change, your outlook changes, your energy changes. But what almost no one realizes is that financial security, that quiet tranquility of knowing you're supported, doesn't start with money. It starts with the mind. It actually starts with how you feel about yourself before you go to sleep. The world teaches us that security comes from the outside, a steady salary, a signed contract, a balance in the bank. But the reality is different. There are people with large sums of money who live anxiously, and there are others with little who sleep peacefully because they know deep down that the future is unfolding in their favor. This isn't naivete, this is emotional programming. The Forgotten Book reveals that the feeling of security can and should be trained, especially at night when the mind is more receptive and open. And like all emotional training, it begins with a choice. The choice to no longer fall asleep in fear. How many times have you gone to bed with a heavy heart, imagining debts, problems, and negative scenarios? How many nights did your body rest, but your mind continued to fight with everything that seemed beyond your control. This habit needs to end, because every night you sleep in fear is a night you reinforce the pattern of scarcity. But every night you choose to sleep feeling secure, even if you don't yet have all the visible resources, is a night you plant a new root in the soil of prosperity. This is where emotional training comes in. It works like this. You close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine yourself in a scenario of total stability. See yourself at peace. See yourself with everything sorted out. Feel what it would be like to open your bank account and see a balance that brings you peace. Feel what it would be like to receive good financial news. Imagine someone congratulating you on an achievement, or visualize yourself smiling, silently, for overcoming challenges that seemed difficult. The key here isn't convincing your mind that everything has already happened. The key is generating the feeling, because feeling is the language the subconscious understands, and if you feel safe, even for 5 minutes, the brain begins to learn. This is the new emotion we need to maintain. Over time, this feeling becomes familiar, and when something becomes familiar, the mind begins to seek it out, reinforce it, and materialize it. This is biology, it's neuroscience, but it's also practical spirituality. By doing this, you are aligning your frequency with abundance. From then on, better decisions begin to emerge naturally. You stop acting desperately. You stop accepting less than you deserve. You start recognizing opportunities. You start speaking more firmly. You start taking a stand with greater conviction, all because your emotional system has begun to operate on a new foundation, inner security. And where did all this come from? From the nightly repetition, from the moment before bed, from the silent ritual you decided to cultivate, even when no one was watching, even when the results hadn't yet arrived. That's what transforms. It's not the external promises, it's the internal commands. And the strongest command you can give your mind, night after night, is, I am safe. Life takes care of me. Wealth is coming. I trust. These words, if spoken with truth, if felt with intention, are like seeds that pass through the surface of the mind and go straight to the most fertile soil of the subconscious. You don't need to see it to believe it. You need to feel it to transform it. And this feeling is like a root. It grows from within and sooner or later breaks the surface with visible fruits. So every night before you go to sleep, consciously choose this feeling. Let go of distractions. Close your eyes and say to yourself, everything is working out in my favor. Breathe, feel, imagine, and sleep in this state. Even if your mind tries to bring up old thoughts, breathe and return to the new image. Even if it seems difficult, remember, you are creating something new, and the new needs to be nurtured. Write in the comments, I sleep with the feeling that everything is flowing in my favor. Do this for yourself, as a reminder, as a declaration, as a silent commitment to your new phase. You don't need to control everything. You just need to control what you plant before bed, because what is planted at night grows in the dark, and one day it appears as visible fruit in the real world. That's the secret. And now, it's yours. There's a simple, silent, and incredibly powerful force that can completely change the way you view the financial reality around you. Directed gratitude. And we're not talking about obligatory gratitude or the generic gratitude that's said automatically, without connection to what you're feeling. We're talking about conscious, strategic gratitude applied in the most valuable minutes of your day, those before sleep. What few people realize is that the mind, when sleeping, enters a state of internal reorganization. It is in this state that the most repeated and most charged emotions begin to be treated as priority. This means that if you go to sleep feeling anger, scarcity, fear, or frustration, the subconscious treats these emotions as central and works throughout the night to reinforce them. But if you intentionally choose to feel gratitude, specific, focused, genuine gratitude, then this is what it assumes as its new center of operation. The secret to directed gratitude is simple. You choose, before going to sleep, to be grateful for what is still in the process of being built, as if it were already present. You don't lie to yourself. You train your mind to sense what it will be like. And it is this anticipated feeling that triggers the creation mechanism. For example, you want financial stability. Instead of lying down worried with your mind stuck on bills and debts, you close your eyes and say, thank you for the financial peace that is coming. Thank you that I can pay everything easily. Thank you for the feeling of peace in handling money. And you don't say it in a rush or as a mechanical repetition. You breathe, visualize, feel, and give thanks as if you were living that moment right now. This practice completely shifts your mind's focus. It shifts your attention away from lack and toward presence. Even if it's still an invisible presence, it's an emotional presence, and that's all the subconscious needs to shift the pattern. The mind works by reinforcement. What you reinforce becomes real. Therefore, if every night you reinforce the presence of wealth, the lightness of abundance, the certainty of receiving, then over time, your reality must adjust to this, because you begin to act, choose, and move according to this new pattern. And that's why the Forgotten Book insists so much on practicing gratitude at night, because during the day, gratitude is often filtered by distractions. But at night, when you're alone with your thoughts and feelings, it comes right in. And if you repeat this ritual for days on end, you'll notice that your way of perceiving life changes. You'll notice that your attention shifts more to what you have and less to what's missing. You'll notice that opportunities which previously seemed scarce now begin to emerge. But be careful. Directed gratitude needs to be real. There's no point in saying, "I'm grateful," if you feel fear inside. You need to build this emotion, and this is done with imagery and intention. So choose specific scenes, imagine details, see yourself experiencing moments that represent abundance to you, and then give thanks, as if it were real, as if it were happening. And don't underestimate the power of this, because the brain is extremely receptive to gratitude. It releases feel-good chemicals, it reduces stress, and most importantly, it opens up internal space for the new. Those who are grateful for what they have and for what is coming signal to their subconscious that they are ready to receive more. That's why grateful people seem to have more luck. It's not luck, it's alignment. They have a clear mind, ready to see and act on opportunities. And this clarity begins in the silence of the night. Every night before bed, stop for a few minutes, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and name 3 things you're grateful for. 3 things that are still in the works, but that you've already decided to receive. It could be, "Thank you for the abundance that is flowing into my life. Thank you for having more than I need. Thank you for making me feel free to choose what I want." And repeat it with truth. Feel it. Imagine it. Trust it. You'll start sleeping better. You'll wake up feeling lighter, and you'll notice your attitude during the day changing. You'll start speaking with more conviction. You'll walk with more confidence, because your mind is now being fed by a positive emotional cycle. This is the turning point. It's not enough to want money. You need to become someone who vibrates at the frequency of those who already have it. And that vibration begins with gratitude, not just any gratitude, but gratitude directed, repeated, felt. Write in the comments, "I give thanks every night for the abundance that is coming." Let this phrase become a mantra, a reminder, an anchor for the days when doubt arises, because it will. But now you have an answer. The answer is always thank before seeing, feel before touching, create before receiving. This is how you break the cycle of scarcity. This is how you build the path to wealth, one night of gratitude at a time. Among all the silent blocks that keep a person trapped in scarcity, perhaps the most invisible and persistent is unworthiness. It doesn't scream, it doesn't show up in speeches, but it lives there, camouflaged between the lines of thoughts. Every time you think, "This isn't for me," "These things don't happen to people like me," "I don't know if I'm good enough," this feeling is at work. And the most dangerous thing is that it works unconsciously. Even when someone says they want to change, that they want a better life, if the feeling of unworthiness is present, nothing stands. Opportunities arrive, and they sabotage them. Paths open up, but they hesitate. Invitations come, but they back away. The Forgotten Book shows that merit is not achieved in the external world. It is built internally, silently, repeatedly, especially at night. Because it is at the end of the day, when the mind is tired, when the masks fall, that the truth comes to light. And it is at this moment that you need to plant a new truth. You deserve to be prosperous, but not because of anything you do. You deserve it because you are. It's that simple. The problem is that you've been conditioned for years to believe otherwise. You were taught that you had to fight, prove yourself, and strive beyond what was natural to be entitled to good things. And even when you succeeded, you felt guilty, because the idea that you don't deserve it was there silently, programming everything. But that can and must change. And it changes when, every night, you begin to nurture a new identity. The identity of someone who deserves, who is enough, who is worthy, who can live a comfortable life without carrying guilt, fear, or shame. This is the real work, reprogramming the value you believe you have. And this is done in the dark, with your eyes closed before bed, with simple yet powerful affirmations, with mental images that confirm this new vision, with feelings that reinforce, I can, I deserve, I accept. And how do you do this? Practically, consciously. You lie down, take a deep breath, and start talking to your mind, not as someone inferior, but as someone who has taken charge. Say phrases like, I deserve to live with financial peace of mind. I accept receiving more, with ease. I am worthy of a prosperous life. Repeat these words, feeling what they mean. If a contrary thought comes to mind, but I've never experienced that, it seems unreal, breathe and continue, because your mind is only reacting to old commands, but you're implementing new ones. This is how you build worthiness, not by waiting for someone to tell you, not by asking for permission, but by reaffirming day after day that you no longer need to carry this programming, that you can let go of the guilt, that you can stop hiding, that it's okay to want more, it's okay to receive more, it's okay to feel good about what's good. If you do this often, your mind will begin to shift, and this shift will affect your behavior. It will alter the way you react. You'll notice that you no longer sabotage yourself as much. You'll begin to accept gifts, compliments, and opportunities more naturally. And most importantly, you'll stop feeling bad about it. This is the big turning point. When you stop resisting and start receiving, when your night stops being a space of anxiety and becomes a space of acceptance, affirmation, and self-recognition. Worthiness needs to be trained, because it's not logical, it's emotional. And everything emotional is shaped by repetition and feeling. So the more you sleep with this sense of worthiness, the more natural it will become, until your mind stops resisting, until it accepts, yes, you deserve it. And then what happens? Reality begins to adjust. You start making choices more consistent with someone who values themselves. You stop accepting crumbs. You stop negotiating with scarcity, and you begin effortlessly to align yourself with experiences of abundance. Write in the comments, I sleep with the certainty that I deserve to thrive. May this phrase become your new code. May it accompany your thoughts in your final breaths of the night. May it be the ground upon which your new identity will rise. You don't need to convince yourself anymore. You just need to repeat it with feeling, because merit isn't proven, it's assumed. And when you embrace this, everything around you begins to change, starting from within. Everything you experience today in some way is aligned with the image you have of yourself. It doesn't matter what you consciously desire. What you experience is a direct reflection of the silent identity you carry. And this identity wasn't chosen by you. It was constructed. It was formed over the years from experiences, words you heard, situations you faced, comparisons you absorbed. And most importantly, this identity can be changed. The key is when you stop trying to change your life and start changing your self-image, because the life you experience on the outside will always follow the model you carry inside. The Forgotten Book reveals that your financial reality is intimately connected to the identity your mind recognizes as normal. And if, deep down, you still see yourself as limited, small, excluded, and unlucky, then no matter how much you desire to prosper, your mind will work to keep you within that version. But if every night you close your eyes and begin to construct, with intention and emotion, a new image of yourself, an image of someone prosperous, confident, valued, free, then that new identity begins to take hold, and everything changes. The great trap is believing that change happens only with effort, that you have to do to have, and only then be. But the real path is the opposite. You first are, even if in thought, even if still secretly. Then you begin to act like who you already are, and then naturally you begin to have. This is the true sequence, and it begins in the silence of your mind at night. It's before bed that you have the perfect opportunity to rehearse this new identity. It doesn't matter where you live, how much you earn, or what mistakes you've made. There, lying down with your eyes closed, you can connect with a new version of yourself, a version that doesn't ask for permission, a version that knows its worth, that walks confidently, that is respected, that is a source of solutions, that receives naturally. And this needs to be rehearsed, because your mind doesn't assume this new identity all at once. It tests, it observes, it needs repetition, it needs emotion, it needs clarity. So every night before falling asleep, you must see yourself in a new way. Imagine yourself walking in a beautiful place, being greeted with respect. Imagine yourself making choices freely. Imagine yourself solving with ease what was previously difficult. Imagine yourself receiving, smiling, sharing. And more than that, feel this way. This repeated, felt image, reinforced with emotion, begins to take root. And what once seemed distant becomes familiar. Your mind then stops resisting and begins to cooperate. You'll notice that over time, you begin to act differently. You begin to say no where you used to give in. You begin to stand up for yourself more firmly. You begin to speak more clearly. And this all comes from within, from a source you began to feed silently every night when no one was looking. This is the power of a well-constructed identity. It doesn't need external proof. It creates proof. It doesn't depend on approval. It generates recognition. It doesn't seek validation. It radiates value. And that's not arrogance. It's awareness. When you know who you are, the world responds accordingly. And prosperity begins to flow, not because you're chasing it, but because you've stopped hiding, because you've decided to embrace who you truly are, a prosperous person. Now, write in the comments, every night I see myself as prosperous. Let this become more than a phrase. Let it be your personal rehearsal, your silent ritual, your mental preparation for the life you're about to live. Don't wait for life to change before you change who you are. Change who you are, and life will adjust. Because reality always responds to the strongest image you hold of yourself, and this image is built in the dark, every night, with intention, emotion, and repetition. There's a common belief that sabotages many people's growth, the idea that to change your life, you need to do something grand, revolutionary, or intense. But what the Forgotten Book teaches is exactly the opposite. The most profound transformation comes from repeating the simplest habits, especially those you repeat at night when no one is looking. You don't have to do something difficult. You have to do something consistent. The human mind is shaped by what it encounters every day. The size of the gesture doesn't matter. What matters is the frequency. It's like water falling on a rock. It doesn't wear away by force, but by consistency. And so it is with the mind. You won't transform it with an avalanche of stimuli. You'll shape it with drops of intention every night before bed. So the question isn't, what else can I do? The right question is, what am I doing every night, without fail? You can say affirmations for 5 minutes, but if you do it every day, your mind begins to shift. You can write 3 lines of gratitude, but if you do it with genuine feeling before bed, your energy begins to reorganize. You can visualize a single scene of prosperity, but if that scene is rich in detail and emotion, your identity begins to rebuild. These are the little habits that change everything. Imagine someone who, every night before going to sleep, performs 3 steps. First, clear your mind of the day's noise. Take a deep breath. Be silent. Turn off external stimuli. Then, repeat empowering phrases to yourself, such as, I am prosperous. Abundance finds me easily. My mind is programmed to get rich. Not as if memorizing, but as if declaring, as if believing, as if giving an order to your own brain. And finally, close your eyes and visualize a simple yet meaningful scene, opening a door to a new house, receiving news of financial relief, sitting with loved ones to celebrate an achievement, and truly feel it all. Now, imagine this person repeating this ritual for 30 days, every day, no skipping, no rushing, with dedication. Do you really believe that after that this person would still think and act the same way? No, because they would have changed inside. They would have built, layer by layer, a new emotional structure. They would have, without realizing it, raised the standard of what they accept, what they seek, what they decide. And most importantly, he would have done it without dramatic effort, just by being consistent. What keeps most people stuck in scarcity isn't a lack of strength. It's a lack of continuity. They start a new habit but stop on the 3rd day. They do a night of affirmations but then forget about it for weeks. They read something inspiring but don't put it into practice. And that's why the secret isn't in what you do once, it's in what you do always. And nighttime habits are the most important because they're the last information your mind receives before entering the state of deep assimilation. During sleep, the brain reprocesses everything. If you feed it images of failure, doubt, and fear, it reinforces them. But if you feed it images of success, security, and confidence, it records them. It's like programming a system. The input determines the outcome, and it doesn't have to be long. 3 minutes can change the way your mind works for 8 hours. 3 minutes, an emotional statement, an image charged with feeling, a small gesture of self-respect. What matters is commitment, it's discipline. It's the daily choice to plant the new even when the old still tries to dominate. You're reprogramming your pattern. You're stepping out of the autopilot of emotional poverty and taking control of your own prosperity. And this requires repetition. It requires patience. It requires continuity. Write in the comments, "My nighttime habits are building my wealth." Let this phrase become your anchor, your reminder, your silent motivation to keep going. And when doubt comes, because it will, you return to your ritual. You breathe, you affirm, you visualize, you feel, you sleep peacefully, and you let your mind do the work. This is how transformation happens, not in speed, but in consistency, not in volume, but in depth. You don't have to change everything at once. You need to change one habit at a time. And the most important habit begins when the world falls silent, and all that's left is you, your mind, and what you choose to plant before falling asleep. Sleep in peace. May prosperity come upon you.